this logo design class, I'm going to be showing you how to create some popular logo design styles, which you can use for your creative projects. Maybe it's a side thing, or even for your client work if you're a designer and you want to improve your design game. The class is going to be very practical and technical. I'm going to also share some tips and techniques as well, but we're going to be using the basic tools in Illustrator, so it's great for a beginner or an intermediate level designer or person who is just wanting to learn more about creating your own logos. Now I'll be showing you how to design the logos from scratch, on how to get some inspiration, ideas, as well as showing some of my sketches. But then we're going to take it into Illustrator and actually design each one, and I'm going to show you the whole process. Let's get designing. There's so many ways of finding inspiration, and I believe that you can get inspiration from anywhere. Whether you're going to go to watch a movie with a friend, or you're listening to music, or just things are happening around you on your way to work, there's so many things around us all the time where you can draw inspiration from. You don't just have to go online and look at, logos or famous, people that are logo designers. But I'm just going to show you a few sites that you can actually use to get some inspiration. And if you watch my previous logo design class, I talk about some other sites that you can go and watch that, which is totally cool. So the first one is one of the key ones is Pinterest. I have some boards on my actual profile. So if I go to my profile, you can see I've got some boards that I'm always constantly adding. For example, I used this one for the class, a whole bunch of monograms, which I love the style of, super cool. But the cool thing with Pinterest is that you can search for anything. And the key to this is using the right keywords. So you can see it actually gives you some recent searches that I had, which is pretty cool. But for example, if I was going to look for, maybe the client wanted a retro vintage logo and it's a real old school type of classic company, I would start to type in like retro logo and see what pops up. So you can see things might pop up, but it might not be the style that I want. A cool trick is that I can go and start typing something else, like retro old logo. So I just change one or two keywords and you get different results every time. I can go vintage label design. And I can see even logos here on labels, which is pretty cool. So that's what I just do, and I type in different stuff, and I just constantly do that until I get a cool result. I can go logo design, old century. And you just keep doing that, and then once I find something, what I can actually do, I'll go back to vintage logo design. So example, if I find something I like, I'll click on it. And the cool thing is, it's going to give you all these logos that are similar to the logo image you clicked. So you can go ahead and if you click the red button and save it, you can save it to a board. So you can start saving it to your client board or your logo design board. So you can build that up and you can have that as inspiration for later on. For example, you can use it as a mood board. And you can see here, I can use all these other logos. And if I like something else, I can click on it. And it's going to give me some other suggestions and recommendations. So that's another good way I use or do to start to find some logos that I like. And you can see there's so many different logos, and I'll go and I'll save it, click on the red button, save it to one of my boards, which is super cool. Another way that I've been recently going on is Behance. I've been using it for a while, but a lot of my friends actually use it, so I've started to go on it. So I follow a lot of designers, and you can see all this cool work here. It just looks amazing. And like first up, you can see like all these logo collections. So I can click on it and like look at this. These are cool logos. Oh, that's super awesome. So Behance is another great way to follow logo designers, and people post a lot of like logo projects that are like collections of like all the work they've done for the year. So you can see here just searching up, super cool. And you can use it definitely for inspiration. And you can click discover and start to search out different things. So you can click Illustrator or graphic design or whatever, and you can search. I can go to the search bar as well. Logo design 2019. You can see what pops up, all these cool stuff. So definitely check that out. Another one of my favorite ones is called Brand New. This is an awesome site. It's actually called underconstruction.com/brand new. So keep that in mind. I'll put the link on the screen. Mostly famous logos or big company logos that go through a rebrand or a redesign, what happens is they show it on this site, and what they do, they review it and people can vote. So you can see here, one of the big ones was MailChimp last year. So I'll click that and you'll see what happens. So yeah, it's really cool to see the before and after picture. So you can see, look, this is the before and this is the new rebranding of MailChimp, which looks super, super awesome. It gives you some explanation, and then yeah, it shows you a bit of the images and the reasoning behind the design, a bit about the brief. They did some illustrations, which is super cool. It shows you some of the marketing as well. So yeah, definitely check on this site. It breaks it down and it gives you examples of like proper like corporate and big brand names, which is super awesome. So definitely check that out. Another cool site is called awards.com. That's awards with 3 W's. But yeah, they have a lot of stuff on web design mainly, but sometimes they got logos. Like for example, they have this cool blog called, a recent one from this year, 99 creative logo designs for inspiration. And you can see here the animated logos, which I like. Even this one, that's super awesome. That's cool. So these are all from this year. They're modern, and it's a great site to look at other projects as well because they do really cool stuff. So plenty of logos there. Go check out awards, and you'll see they have a lot of competitions and things like that, and they do a lot of ratings where they rate different types of projects and web design stuff. So definitely check them out. And then, of course, there's Instagram because, I'm always on Instagram, but there's so many different sites, but a few ones that I've been looking at lately. One is called Logo Bloom. They have challenges, but they have so many cool logos here. I love it. Like, look, all different styles, different types. Got some monograms, got some badge styles. So, just go on Instagram and type in logo into the search bar, and you'll find so many different accounts. And like logo inspirations, logo archive, logo passion. Like, there's so many. But here's just a couple that I use. I also love badge design as well. Almost at 100K followers, which is pretty interesting. Look at these cool badges. Oh, that's awesome. I love the texture, how they did that. That's awesome. Got some vintage ones. Got some more modern ones. Typographic. So yeah, so many cool designs. So there's some places you can go for some inspiration online. And then of course there's books and stuff like that. But this is just a quick way to get inspiration for your logo design. One of the first things I do before I start any design is start to do some research and start to do some mind mapping, because we have so many ideas and thoughts in our head that we have to get it out. So if you're not doing it on paper, which I used to do a lot, then there's a few apps I'll show you now to create some nice mind maps. And the thing is, what we want to do, we want to draw out the ideas we already have in our mind or thoughts regarding the logo design or the style or the audience, whatever that is, and we want to expand that out into a mind map. You can call it a thought tree, an idea tree, a brain map. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to call it. This site is called whimsical.com. So if you go to that site, you can create free boards. You can also create like a wireframe and flowchart and stuff like that. But all you do is when you sign up, you can create a mind map. So you click new mind map and you will get this page pop up. And I'm just going to zoom in here. So what I've done, I'm basing this off one of the logos you'll create in this class, which will be the Logic logo design, which is just based on a video streaming service where people can upload their videos to specifically for like gadget and tech reviews or vlogs based in that genre. And obviously it's just made up just for the purpose of this class. So what I've started off with, you can click this white box and you can choose some of these settings. So you can actually change the style of how the lines appear. So if I zoom out, you can see you can go vertical. So if you're a type of person that likes this and likes to see it visually, you can do that. I can switch it back by clicking back and make it horizontal. I can also make the connections angular and just straight if I want, but I like it kind of curvy. And you can add links and you can add all these other things as well. You can add little icons as well, which is pretty cool. And from that, what I do, I start to just think of things that are in my head and start to write it out. So what you can literally do, you just click here and you get this little button on the right hand side. You can click that and then you can type whatever you like. And then from this, you can just click it and you can make more connections. If you don't write anything and click off it, it'll just get rid of it. And I just can click again and change it and just type whatever. and I can also select the type box and I can change colors and do whatever I want. So like it's super handy. Make it green. But you can see the point of here is just to be rough. You don't want to be too focused. You can see I'm just, playing around with one idea. So it's about video streaming and videos online. So I'm thinking of like video, okay, a play button. That reminds me of YouTube, or YouTube has a red button and subscribers, or a play button sort of like a triangle. So I'm thinking of a pyramid. So I stretch it as far as I can. And obviously this was done pretty quickly. So the more time you spend on it, you'll extract different words, and you just want to create word associations. That's all you want to do. So you can see here are some examples. Start off with camera. You can see that's Sony and all that stuff. Start breaking it down. If I go over here, you got technology or gadgets, or I think, drones. Oh, cool, drones, wings. And then I start thinking of planes. So you want to think of all these different words, because you can actually use that in your design. Then once again, we've got streaming here, and then it makes me think of an online audience connection. What would connection look like? Would that be like, interchanging lines? Would it be like a globe? It could mean so many different things. Another main tool I use is called Notion, and you can use it for both, Mac PC and mobile and on desktop as well, which is pretty cool. But you can have all these different workspaces. But primarily, you can create a page, you can create tables and all that cool stuff. But I usually make a page and write notes of the client projects of the brief. So I'll break it down very simply in here. And yeah, I start to talk about like the goal, a bit about what the actual design is going to be about. Like what's the business, what's the name, does it have a tagline, what's the target audience. I can move the columns as well here. And what's our goal as well. So I just start out to write out words, whatever I'm thinking straight away, and then start to spend a bit of time doing that. You can spend up to 30 minutes, an hour, a couple hours. It doesn't have to be too long. It's just up to you how much, you want to develop and how big this client is. And honestly, I can just start typing. I can add like headings. I can also add to-do lists, and you can get all these options. I can add bullet lists. I can add a numbered list or a toggle list, whatever. So maybe I want to type in video, and then I can click this and start to add more notes, and start typing it out, and you can add lists like this, and I can close it, which is super handy. So you get the point. It's pretty easy. It's a really good note-taking app, and it's free as well, this one, but you're sort of limited to 1,000 words on a page, I think, something like that, but you can just pay like $5 a month. It's pretty cheap. So yeah, there's the two sites that I use, and you can use it to get ideas, create your mind maps, and start to generate different types of, word associations that you can use to start to develop your logo. In this part of the class, I want to be showing you how to create a monogram style logo. And you can see here, I'm using 3 letters here, but a monogram is typically 2 letters or 3 letters. You can probably do 4, but that would be a bit tricky. But yeah, with a monogram, it's typically your initials. So your first name and your last name. For this, I did MDC, which is Miro Design Co. So you can see it's 3 letters here. And you can see the construction here. I'm going to show you how to create it from scratch, just using basic shapes in Illustrator and just using some, colors. So you can see here MDC, you can see it pretty clearly. And then you can see it in the different color forms and shades. In one color in white and black. And then you can see I added a bit of a stroke there just to make it more clear. And you can see it reversed and with a bit of texture. So a monogram is super cool. It's got that, vintage antique vibe to it. It works really well if you're doing that type of client work, or even you can even use it as a modern style, as like a badge. It works well on t-shirts or in smaller sizes and that type of thing. So monogram can be used for multiple uses, and it's a cool way of doing a logo, and it's good to do it as a secondary option as well, just to have like something different and unique. But yeah, I love combining letters. But one of the things I will add is that it can be a bit tricky if some letters don't match and work well together. So you might have to find letters that work well. That's why you've got to do a bit of research, and you can look around and do that stuff. But I recommend, if you're going to follow along with this part of the course, then what you'll do, just use your first name and last name. You can use your middle name if you want to do 3 letters, if you want to challenge yourself. But if you just stick with 2, it'll be a lot easier, and see what you can create with what you have. So what I'm going to do, what I did is went on Pinterest, And I found a lot of styles that I did like. I typically like this, blocky style of Monogram, very thick, very cool. And you can see I like the little descenders and ascenders, the little flourishes on the ends, as you can see here. Just really simple and clean and nice, and it works well. You can see how they add like these little shading, just to make the letters more clearly and show that it gives an illusion that it's interlooping with each other. Like even for this one's pretty cool. See how it gives that illusion that it's coming under the H and the T and stuff. And then you can see people apply it to a more like retro vintage style as well. And yeah, so I did some research, looked around, got some inspiration on Pinterest, which was super cool. And then what I did some sketches as well. So you can see here the sketches that I did. And I just took a picture with my iPhone, nothing fancy. I just started off with doing some basic ones. Originally, I was just going to do my name, but then I figured like I might as well do my company name, which is Mirror Design Co., which is technically my last name. And I just did some, basic blocky sketches, as well as doing it thin as well. I like just sketching with the lines in just a path because it's like easier and faster. So I recommend doing that. So they're very rough, like nothing too crazy. And you can see that I started to like this type of lock up here, as you can see in the middle. And just playing around there. I could have done a lot more sketches, but I sort of had a picture in my mind what I wanted, and then I decided to do this. So you can go ahead and do sketches as well if that helps you. You can trace over that, but we're just going to use the basic shapes really to create this monogram here, and that's all you'll need. So let's get stuck into it. I'm just going to press Tab to bring up my toolbar because it wasn't there. You go to Window, and to get up your toolbars, you can just get up at the top here and click Toolbars and go to Advanced or Basic, whatever you want to use. And we're just going to be using most of the tools from here. So first up, the shortcut key for rectangle tool is M. You can go to the left and see the rectangle tool there. So what I'm going to do is start to create the M. And I can just use this as a guide, as you can see. I can refer back to it. So I'm going to start off with just a rectangle. I'm just going to draw a rectangle, not too thick. Just like that. Then what I'm going to do, I like to keep my monograms in the same width, in a single width. Just makes it a bit easier. And then I customize it later on and edit it just to make it, fix it up later. So I'm just going to hold Alt and Shift, and that will duplicate it. I'll place my mouse over the corner, and you'll see a little rotating arrows. And then I can just click and drag, holding Shift. And then it should rotate at a 45-degree angle and just flip it so it's horizontal like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag it to the top. And now we have the top part of the M. And what I'm going to do now is select this shape and go to the edges. You can see all the anchor bar points and things like that, which you can drag in. So I'll drag that point in like this. Maybe make it a bit short like this. Cool. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate the left bar, bring that across. An MU typically doesn't go like this. This is too blocky. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to shear it. And the way I do this is I select this bar. I press A for the direct selection tool. And that's pretty much the white mouse button, which you can see in the top left toolbar. It's like a white little mouse button, and it allows me to select just anchor points. So if I click and drag, I can select these top two anchor points. Now what I'm going to do is left click on one of them, holding Shift and dragging my mouse and just slowly bringing it across like that until I feel like I have a nice angle like this. And then I'm just going to select this shape and just bump it to the left, which is super cool. So you can see there, if I'm happy with that, that's fine. I might bump it a bit more because I like having a bit more space to work with here. And yeah, so that looks good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this and I'm going to duplicate this so I don't have to recreate it. It'll just save me time. I'll press O on the keyboard, and that's the reflect tool, which is on the left. So on the left, you can see my mouse is over it. It's like two triangles together. That's the reflect tool. Now what I'm going to do with the reflect tool, I'm going to hold Alt, left click on an anchor point, typically in the middle. So make sure you press O, hold Alt, left click once, and make sure you select all your shapes as well. I'm going to click vertical, and you can see it's going to make a copy of all those shapes once you press the copy button. Don't press OK. Make sure you press copy or else it won't work. So press that, and then boom, you have this. So I'm just going to select all these shapes, drag it across, and I'm just going to zoom in holding Alt and just using my mouse wheel to zoom in. And then I'm going to make sure that it snaps together like that. If things are not snapping, you can go to View, make sure you can Smart Guides are on, and make sure Snap to Point is on. You can turn Snap to Pixel off as well, unless you're using a grid. So if I turn on the grid, you can see here, there's a grid there, which is also pretty handy as well. So I can leave that on, snap to grid if I want to. So awesome, there we have it. We have our M so far. If we need to customize it, then we can. But for now, it's totally cool. So you can see how all these shapes are separate now. That's totally fine, because what we're going to do is some things will overlap and with each other, but we can also just plus them later on. But for now, it's totally fine. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the C really quickly. I'll do the same thing. I'll select this bar, press Control C, Control F, rotate it. I'm going to change the color to a lighter gray so we can see what we're doing. I'll just bring it to the front and place it somewhere in the middle there. And what I'm going to do is hold Alt and select the middle part of the bounding box, and holding Alt, clicking, dragging out, and it should double like that, as you can see. I'll duplicate it, holding Alt and Shift, and I'll click and drag down and drag it downwards. So now we have that shape, and then I'll just duplicate one of them, rotate it again. So I'm just repeating the process to create all the shapes. That's why it's crucial that you sketch first, so you know where you're going to be placing all the letters and shapes. So you can see here I've got my C here. Just going to check that it's wide enough. If not, I can always change it, but that's looking fine to me at the moment. Cool, that's looking good. So now I'm going to create the D. So the D is pretty much the same thing, just flipped around. So I'll select these shapes, press Control C, Control F, rotate, and I'll just move it out of the way so you guys can see what's happening. I'll change the color to a lighter gray as well. And you can always group the shapes as well, so I can press Control G or Command G, which is the same thing if you're on a Mac or PC, and I can just group it together, which just makes it easier. You can always ungroup things as well by holding Shift and pressing Control Shift G. All the options are in Object as well, so you can see here, and Edit as well. So you got groupings, pastings, and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press A for the direct selection tool and just drag this shape down here. And I'll drag this one down like this, extend it out, because I want the D overarching that C. And the key is not to scale it, because if you group things or the shape or you scale it like this, what's going to happen, it's going to increase the width of the shape, and we don't want that. That's why I'm using the direct selection tool, just to use the anchor points to extend shapes so it doesn't change the width. So I have more control over what's happening there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag all these shapes, holding Shift, just the D and the C shapes, and just drag them down a bit like this. And I want to extend these shapes out a bit as well, like that. So I'm like happy with it. So cool, that's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the little flourishes on the end, which is super fun. You can also play around, you can add different types of flourishes, but I'm just going to show you a simple way of doing it. We're going to make a rectangle, so press M, hold Alt and Shift to drag it out. Make sure it's the same size as this, or you can duplicate one of these shapes if you want. So I've matched the size, the width of the other shapes. I'm going to drag this out. I'm going to press A, select any of the anchor points on the top, and you'll see if you're in Adobe CC, which you should be, you can get this little white circle what you want to do is you want to drag it all the way down or inside, and you'll get this like cut pizza slice shape. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select it, use the reflect tool again, which is super helpful. Hold Alt, left click once, so I can see what's going to happen. It's just easier doing it this way instead of just doing it blindly. And then you can see vertical, preview, and copy. Now we have this cool shape here which we can use. I'll group these shapes together, select it and press Ctrl G. I'll then rotate it, and I'll match it like that. And because this is grouped, I can scale it down together. So I'll hold Shift, select any of the anchor points on the bottom there, and I'm just going to scale it down like that. Now I'm going to press I for the eyedropper tool and just sample this color here to change the color. And there we have it. We've got our little descender, little flourish thing, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to duplicate it and do the same thing for all the other shapes. And I can just literally duplicate it for like that and then just change the colors. So I'm just keeping it very simple so you can create it yourself. But, you know, if you have time, you can experiment with this one. I can maybe add it on the M as well. But you can see it kind of looks a bit funny because you see it's not connected and this goes straight and it cuts down. So for me, I just left that out. And what I'm going to do now, I'm also going to scale this down. So I'll select these anchor points and drag them down just to make it more readable. You always want to make sure with the monogram that it's readable, and that's why we add some little shadows and things later and cut some parts out just so the letters become legible, because that's very important, especially if it's going to be a key logo. So once I've added all the little end bits, what I can start to do is start to do the overlapping parts that I want. And this might take a little bit of time, but what we're going to be using is the shape builder tool to cut out parts that we don't need. So first up, the letter M is the key part or the key letter. So this is one, that's why it's the biggest and it's the dark color here as well. But it needs to be the one that's most prominent. So I'm just going to quickly hold Shift and group these together just so it's in front so you guys can see that. What I'm going to do before I start to do the overlapping is I'm just going to make this a bit more wider, some of these shapes. Zoom in here. I'm just going to drag these shapes down a bit of the C just to give it more space. Sorry for the D. Just to give more space there. And then bump that down. Yeah, cool. And just make sure this is there. So what I want to do, I want to have the C going through the M, which I like that effect. So what I'm going to do is bring this shape to the front. So the shortcut key is Control Shift and the left or right square bracket. The left square bracket brings it down. The top right square bracket brings it up. So you can see I'm bringing it up and down. The shortcut key, you can find it if you go to Object and the menu section on the top. You can go on Arrange and you can use any of the options there. I prefer to use the shortcuts because it's just way faster instead of clicking every time to do that. So you can send all the way to the back, bring it all the way to the forward, or you can just do it in increments. So what I want to do, I want to have this part coming through like that. So what I'm going to do is select this shape and I'm just going to drag it in. I'll make a duplicate as well. So I've got the shape here. So I want it coming under one of these little bars in the middle bar section of the M. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the anchor points. And I'm going to match the anchor points to this angle. So if you have smart guides on, it should snap. Because I turned back my grid on, snap to grid, you can see it's not snapping properly. So it's a good example to show you. See how it won't go, it will just snap to the grid. So if I turn the grids on, you can see the little lines. You might not be able to see it, but you can see the lines there. So I can go back and turn snap to pixel off because I don't need it now. So what I'm going to do is going to snap this and then snap that. And it should snap exactly to the bar how I want it. I'll do the same for this one as well. just like that. And you can see we have this cool overlapping effect with the sea. I love that. It's awesome. When you start to add like, effects and drop shadows and things like that, it looks cool. So that's overlapping, and the bottom section as well is fine. Now we're going to start to work on the D. So with the D, we want to have it overlapping over here. So I'm just going to quickly fix this. Check that up. I'll select this shape. Because it's grouped, I'm just going to quickly ungroup it. And I'm going to drag this in like this. I'll duplicate this square like that. So I've got one shape here and one shape here. And I'm going to bring that shape on top of the M. So now you can see. So we've got two shapes here. Or you can just have this one shape and just bring it. Actually, no, it's not. So now we have this shape over the M. So it looks like the D is coming through. And with the D, I decided not to have the main stem or the bar, and that's going horizontal. That's going vertical, and just because it might look a bit weird here and it'll be a bit tricky, so I just left it. But you can still see the main shape of the D there, and the C is pretty much similar. So we had that overlapping through there, and then what we want to have is we want this part of the C to overlap this. So I'm just going to bring this shape here, duplicate it, holding Alt and Shift, and just realigning it. Bring it forward, so Control Shift right square bracket to bring that in front. And now you can see the C is overlapping that D part, and the D's behind the C there. So it looks like the D is further in the background, the C is sort of in the middle, and the M is like the prominent shape, and everything's interlooping with the M. But there's so many ways you can do it. This is just how I decided to do it. But the more you experiment and play around, then it's going to be sweet. And just make sure that everything is connected. So you can see I'm just zooming in and just fixing things up here and there, just so it's all aligned, because we want it to be neat, we want it to be professional, so when we clean it up later, it's going to be good. So sweet. That's pretty much the main parts of the monogram. Now what we're going to do is create the little shadows, and we're also going to start to round off some of these shapes and start to clean up some of these shapes here. Another key thing to remember as well is that you don't want to add too many shadows and overlap too much, because it might not be legible. But we're going to add shadows in certain parts, not everywhere where there's an overlap. So you can see here, like we can add a shadow there, we can add a shadow there. Whatever shape is on top of another shape, you can potentially put a shadow there and cut it out. But it just depends. You want to make sure that it's legible and readable. So first up, what I'm going to do is start to make little rectangles. And I'm just going to make them white for now, because the thing is, we can always, I don't want to start destroying the shapes yet, because then if we make a mistake, it'll be hard to go back and I'll have to Control Z everything. So before I just start to add this shape, I'll make a duplicate. So I'll select everything, hold Alt and Shift just to duplicate the monogram. And then now I'll start to add the shading. So I'll add a white box there. And I'm just making it white because the background is white for now, just so you can see it, and just so I can see what I'm doing as well. So I'll add one shape here. I'll duplicate this shape, this square. I'll change the color so you can see what's happening. And once again, I'm going to snap it. Press A for the direct selection tool. Select the angle point and just drag it to the angle of the stem or the bar of the M. I'll just put it, I can eyeball it as well optically, and then I'll make this white. From my swatches, I'll click on the white swatch to make it. And I just want to make sure that I keep the same consistency and width on all the shadows. So I'll duplicate this shadow over here, and just so I get a general idea, I can see like this. Because it's on an angle, I have to optically do it, so you can see that it matches. And bump this one like that. Cool. Yeah, that's looking good. So we've got one shadow, two shadow, three shadow, and one more over here. Make it a bit wider. And they're all the key shadows that I want to add. I can add more if I want to, but I feel like this keeps the legibility and it doesn't overwhelm the logo design. And you can see it's balanced, like I'm pulling it all over. So I've got a couple here and then on the right side as well. So it's balanced. So it's not, so the white space is, you know, fairly balanced, I guess. So cool, now we've done all that. I'm gonna duplicate it. And now I'll just start to clean up some of the stuff and then we can round some of the corners. So what I'll do, you can see some of these shapes. So I'm going to select the D here. And what I'm going to do is go to my Pathfinder tool, Windows, and go to Pathfinder. As you can see here, mine's on the right here, as you can see the little board. And it's the first one. And this is just going to unite them. I also said that we can use the shape builder tool. You can do that as well. So if I select these two shapes, I can hold Shift M. And you can see the little plus. If I hold Alt or Option, it will become a minus. But I can just click and drag and plus those shapes together. So you can see like that. But you can see with the shape builder tool, if you plus certain shapes or certain shapes are grouped and things like that, it might bring it forward or, you know, change the arrangement of where it is in the layer thing. So you can see here, I just did it and now it's above, but I have to bring it below the M, as you can see now. So that's just a quick tip as well, just to keep in mind when you're doing this. I'm gonna select these ones. Now I'm just gonna drag them in. Oops. Drag them in because I don't make it too imbalanced. We want to make sure that it's sort of like a square. So potentially if so you can pretty much treat it's like a square almost, and it's not some weird shape. So I'll plus these together, just hit the shape build tool, bring that up. I can plus those together. Some of the shapes you can leave as is for now. Plus this together. That's one shape. The M is a little tricky because everything's overlapping with it. So if I plus this one, should be fine. Plus this one. So if there's one shape that's on top and one below, it's not gonna work. So you can just leave the shapes like that. Cool. So I've plus all the main shapes. What I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna quickly duplicate it. I'll just bring these across. Duplicate this. And I'll select certain parts of the M that I want to round off, like these top anchor points. And if you go to the top corner, or in the middle of Illustrator up the top here, you can see it says corners. Once you select the anchor points, you can actually put in a number, like I'm going to put 10 pixels, and now you can see it's rounded off those corners. I just like having it rounded, it feels nice. I'm going to round up the D as well, so it just doesn't look like a block. D is not enough, so I'll have to bump that up. Or you can use a little white circle and drag it in like that. So I can drag all the way that in. I can also round off this little bit as well if I want. So I'll just go back, select it. I'll do 15 pixels for that. And for this corner, you can see I can't do it because these are not plussed. So what I will have to do is plus that together. So I just use the shortcut to plus it with because I have an action. Now I'll make it the same as this corner. So that was 15 pixels. Select this anchor point, go to the top bar there, type in 15, press enter, and it rounds off this little corner there. So that's the D. We've got the nice little capital D. Another thing with the monograms, make sure you keep all the letters uppercase, or if you're doing all lowercase, do lowercase, but typically monograms stick with uppercase because it looks better and it's more readable. I can also round off these corners here if I want. That. Sweet, that looks cool. Sweet, now it's looking good. So I'm just going to duplicate this one just so we can always go back if we make mistakes. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start to cut out some of these. I'm going to cut the shadows off now. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use the shape builder tool, press Shift M to select the shape builder tool. And I'm going to hold minus. So to get the minus part up, once you're in the tool, you see it recognizes there's different shapes in Illustrator. But you want to hold Alt or Option, depending if you're a Mac or PC. And where I put the white boxes, I'm going to minus them off. If you can't see, and if it's easier for you guys, you can always just change the color so you can see what you're doing there. And now what I want to do, just go here, and just click minus, and I'm minus the strokes there. You can see it minus this one for some reason. I can always just go fix that. Just going to select these two shapes, minus that off. I'll select the orange shape and the D shape, minus that off. And then this one. So now what we can do is I can start to change the colors. So what I like to do is a shortcut. I'll press Ctrl G. I'll double click. Now you can see if I go in here, I can select just stuff within isolation mode. So I'm in isolation mode, so I'm just using these shapes here. So if I select stuff, it won't select anything in the actual document. So I'll press Y for the magic wand tool. This pretty much allows us to select the same color. You can also go to select up the top and click on same. And you want to select it by fill color, which is the easiest. So now if I select the black, it's going to select all the black shapes. And then I can just change the color. So I can make orange. I select the gray color, it will select just the C shape. I can change it to a dark color there. And I can do the same for the D as well. And I'll just change that to a dark orange, a brownie color. And there we have it. We've done the... And there we have it. It looks pretty cool with the colors. I've noticed I didn't round off these corners here, so I can go ahead and round off that. No biggie. And I can just press exit or escape to get out of the isolation mode. And I'm just going to duplicate this. So now if you want to put it on a different background color or whatever, you can put it on gray if you want. What I'll do as well, I'll make a black version. And I'll select all these shapes now, and I can actually plus them all together. So what I'm going to do is go to my Pathfinder tool and press Unite, which is the first shape mode here. And it should plus them all together, and I'll make it white. Just like this. So it looks very complex, but it's actually really simple. You can do just orange, full orange version if I don't want to do colors. And just like that, it's really simple. If your lines are, or spacing is making it not legible, what you can do is just add a stroke to it. So I can go to my stroke panel. So you can go to Windows Stroke to open that up. And I'll put a 5 stroke and I'll make it black. Make it whatever color is on the outside of the actual thing. So I can bump that up. Another key to remember as well, if you plus it all together, like unite it all, it doesn't add the stroke to every shape. So if I go back and I'll show you what I mean. Go back here and I'll make it all black. Sorry, all white. Drag this. You can see this one, it's not all plussed yet, but I can still add a stroke to it. So you can see whatever shapes are not like plussed together yet, we'll add the stroke to it. But just remember, it might stuff some parts up. So make sure wherever you've connected the shapes, that's where you're gonna see the stroke there. So with the added stroke and shadows, you can see it looks super cool. It's very clear. I can see the letters there, and you can add some texture. I can add a texture from one of my texture packs. I'll add this like little cloth here. You can see that it's a bitmap, not a vector, but I can trace it if I want. And there we have it. It looks super cool. So that's how you create a monogram. Hope you guys enjoyed this style of monograms. And if you decide to do this logo, then you can do that and put it in the project, and that'll be super cool. In this part of the class, I want to be showing you how to create a geometric style logo. As you can see here, I created this seed logo with a nice logo mark and some custom type that I did just using basic shapes. The thing with geometric, there's a few different styles. You know, you can go for more an abstract style or very a minimal style. So it just depends what you like. And I have some examples here that I quickly created as well. And I've been using this simple grid as well in the back, which I'll show you how I created that. So you can see some of the different logo marks here that I created. And the thing with geometric, it's all about using simple shapes, triangles, circles, squares, rectangles, all that type of thing. And using the shape tools in Illustrator to create a cool mark that is, you know, identifiable, but, you know, unique and different. So I'm going to show you how to create this mark here. And we're just going to start off by using a simple grid. So remember, a grid is only a guideline. It doesn't have to be used every time you do a logo, but for this style of logo, we're using a lot of circles. So I want to make sure that we're using that grid just to help us out. First up, you want to press Control K or Command K, and you'll get your preference menu up. You can also go to File or Edit, and there's a preference menu there. So in the general, you see I've got a keyboard increment here. It's just on 4 pixels, so you can copy that. And now if I go on the side, there's all these menus. You want to click on Guides and Grid. And I've honestly just did a 4x4 grid. I did grid line every 80 pixels, and then subdivision is 4. So that's how I did to set it up. There's different types of grids that you can do, and like an isometric grid and other ways you can do it, but that's all I've done. 80 and 4, and then general is just set to 4. And the increments is so when I press the arrow keys, it jumps on the right thing. So for example, now if I zoom in, you should be able to see the lines. If you're not seeing the lines, then you might have to go to View and play around with some of these settings here. Make sure that your grids are on. So I'll go View, go Guides, make sure that, you want to go to Grid. You want to make sure that it's showing the grid. The shortcut key is there, Control plus and the comma button. So if I press that, you can see it will get rid of the grid there. So you want to make sure that's turned on. You want to make sure that Snap to Grid is turned on as well, but you can always turn it off. And sometimes I do that when I'm doing some of the leaf design. I turn it off just so I can connect some of the strokes together, which is totally cool. And you want to make sure that your smart guides are on as well, which helps you out. So super cool. Now let's get stuck into it. We'll start off with doing the leaf here. So first up, I'm going to press L for the ellipse tool, which is located on the left-hand side within your shape tool section. So I'll press L, and what I'm going to do is hold Alt and Shift, and I want to try and select on these darker gray sections where the grid is like in the 4s, just to make it easier. So I'm just going to drag out a circle, and I want to make it black for now, black stroke. I'll turn off the fill there, and I'll bump the stroke up to about 10. So that's cool. So I'm going to use this circle as a reference point. This will be like the middle of the flower. I'm going to duplicate this circle by holding Alt and Shift, and then I'm going to click and drag off it like this. And to make the leaf, what I'm going to do is select this circle, duplicate it again by holding Alt and Shift and dragging across. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bump it. So you can go left and right on the arrow keys to make a bump. And I'm going to select, I'll probably do maybe that thickness looks all right. And then what I'm going to do, I'll select these two together, press Shift M for the shape builder tool, and then hold Option to minus those edges off. The shape builder tool is on the left hand side, so you can see if I'm speaking too fast, it's on the left hand side, which you can see there. You can also go to your Pathfinder tool as well, if you're familiar with that, and you can just cut them out. So you can select this option here, and it should cut out the edges. So the third shape mode would do the same thing. So cool. So what I'm going to do now is just grab this, and then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bump down the arrow keys. So you can see I'm using my guides as a guide there. I might scale this up a little bit as well, just to make it a bit longer there. Looking super cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut part of this stroke. So if you can see, if I zoom in, you can press Control Y or Command Y to go to outline mode. It's also in the view section as well. You can select it from here to go into the outline mode. So you can see here that it doesn't line up. That's totally fine. If I exit the outline mode, you can see it's still connected. And later on, it's going to be fine because what we're going to do is we're going to be able to just expand all the strokes and turn it into one shape. So if you want to join the things, you just go to View, turn off Snap to Grid, and then you should be able to connect it so it's all aligning to the stroke. And then once again, you can turn back Snap to Grid on, and you can see the shortcut there. Snap to Grid is Shift plus Control and the comma. So if I turn that on with the shortcut key, you can see it turns on. So you can see here, just be mindful of the part of the shape. What I'm going to do is actually round that off. So I'll go to my stroke panel and I'm going to click on the round cap. You see in the cap section, you got 3 options. Click the middle one to round the caps off. Make sure you select the shape. And you want to round the corner. So you can see how it's sort of on the edge there, it's popping out. What I'm going to do is round it off. So I'll select the leaf, click on my stroke panel, which you can find in the window section, window stroke. And I'm going to go to my corner and round that off, and it should get rid of it there, as you can see. So it's actually rounded off the top ends a bit. So you can see pointy, click that and it rounds it off. Super useful. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go zoom in, press C for the scissor tool. I'm going to go in and actually cut part of this bit here. And then I'm going to select this part and delete that. So you can see we have this part, it's cut off. And then what I'm going to do is press P for the pen tool. Locate this anchor point. I can keep going to outline mode if you can't see it, which is Control Y. I'm just going to left click once. And for this, we're going to have to turn off the grid mode again. So go View, turn Snap to Grid off so I can select the path there. I'll left click once. And then I'll go about halfway here using the square as a guide. And I'm going to hold Shift and just drag that up like this to get a nice curve. And if I want to edit the curve, I can press P and then drag this handle down a little bit. So you can see holding Shift there. So we get this shape of like a custom leaf here. And I want to make sure that I select this, and you want to make the cap round as well. So cap means at the end of the path, it's going to round that off. So corner and cap, you can round those off to make it look nicer. So cool, once we have the leaf, what we can do now is actually rotate it. So you can see, just gonna make sure that there's no extra copies there. So keeping it clean, so I have the leaf there. I'm gonna use this center of the circle as my guideline for this. So I'll select the leaf, press R for the rotate tool, go to the middle of the circle, and your smart guides will tell you it's the center. Holding Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, left click once, you'll get a box pop up. Now for this logo mark, I have 6 sides. So what you want to do, if you want to make it even, you got to make sure that it adds up to 360, because 360 is a radius of a round circle. So because I want 6, I put the angle on 60, as you can see here, and it's giving me a preview. Make sure your preview is ticked on. So it's going to move it to there, but you don't want to press OK, you want to press copy. And this will make a copy of that leaf. So before I do anything, what I'm going to do now is press Control D or Command D, which is going to duplicate that same action that we just did. So it's going to duplicate the leaf, and it's actually going to repeat that rotation. So I press it on the keyboard, holding it down and just going Control D, Control D, Control D. And there we have it. It's all duplicated, looks really cool, looks awesome. And now we're going to do the same for the little circles on the sides there. So for this one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the middle part of the leaf here, make a circle, a reasonable size, and I'm going to place it somewhere where I know it's going to land, somewhere in the middle here. I can probably go down a bit more. And I'm going to do the same thing. Press R for the rotate tool. You can also go on the left-hand side as well to find it in the middle of the toolbar section. I'll go to the middle, I'll hold Alt, but this time the angle, I don't want it to be 60. I actually want it to be 30 because it's half of 60. So we want it to be in between the leaves. So I'll do that and press copy. And I'll press Control D again to do the same thing as I did before. And we have our circles there. And now I'm going to delete all the ones that I don't want. So I can go hold Shift and select the ones in the leaves. And I can delete those by pressing delete. And now I just have all these like nice little circles. They can be seen as like seeds or pollen or like that type of stuff. And it looks pretty cool. So before I continue, I'm actually going to just scale up these circles because I don't really like, they're a bit too small. So I'm going to go to Object, Transform and Scale. And I'm going to go to maybe 130%. Press OK. And I'll just repeat that process for the rest as well. I'm not sure if there's a faster process to do this, but if I select them all and scale them, it actually will scale them and actually move them out of the place because it scales from the bounding box of the object. So this is why I'm doing it manually really quickly. And there we have it. Cool. So we have all the main parts. Now we're just going to add a circle in the middle. So what I can do, I can get this circle and duplicate it. So go Control C, Control F, and now I have a duplication of that circle. I can scale this in. I'll go to View and make sure my Snap to Grid is back on. So it's snapping, you can see, to this grid here. Just makes it easier. So I'll keep it like that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some strokes. So I'll press P for the path tool. And I'm just going to click here once and then left click once. And you can see that it connected the leaf and that. I'm going to just cut that. So go Control C, click that point so it cuts it off. So I just have this path here, as you can see. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate this as well. So I'm going to press R, select the middle, hold Alt. And I'm going to do 30 and do copy. And you can do it like this. So you can have heaps of lines, which looks fine. And there we have it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to duplicate this. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select everything, go to Object, and I'm going to go to Expand. You'll get a box pop up and you'll say fill and stroke. That means it's going to expand anything that's a fill or a stroke in the object. So I'll press OK. And now you can see it turns everything to shapes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my Pathfinder tool and then click the first one, which is Unite. And you can see all the shapes just connected into one shape. Now we can see we have our final logo mark. And I can bring it out here like this. And we can save it as a PNG. We can use it as a logo. Play around with the colors here. And just like that, we have a cool geometric flower mark that could be used for like an organic brand or, a juice business or an oil business, anything related with that type of vibe, but it's just up to you. So yeah, this is how to create a logo mark using some, a bit of grids and having it with an abstract geometric feel. Hey, in this part of the class, I'm going to be showing you how to create this cool word mark, and we're just going to be using basic fonts and some cool techniques to just customize the font and make it look really nice. So the reason why we use word marks is it gives a more premium feel to the logo. It also works really well when you have like one word, or maybe you have a long business name or company name. That's when it works really well. And yeah, you can see in this example that I'm going to show you how to create, it's more feminine. And the whole idea behind this is that it's an entrepreneur community for women based in the creative space, beauty space, and fashion space. So that's why I went for this feminine look. And they talk about strategies about building wealth, running their business, and stuff like that. And you can see I just put like a little description on the side, which is good to just keep in mind. Always focusing on the target, especially if it's a client or something like that. And then I got a basic color palette. I like this pastel palette, really subtle, really nice. Just got that off Adobe Color, which is really easy to find. You can also go on Google as well and just do a search. Or in my other classes, I mentioned some ways to get color. So first up, let's start off with selecting a font. So what you always want to do first before you ever start like creating, you want to just lay out heaps of different fonts, but you want to focus on the name itself first. So what I do is I do different versions. So I start playing around with the word Prosper. Maybe you might not can do this depending on the company name, and if it's a brand new company, you'll be able to maybe change the name. But if it's not, then don't worry. But what I've done is that I just tested out what would it look like if it had no E, or maybe it had like a dash between the R. You know, I would play around with it in uppercase. I tested it just in a title case with the P. What would it look like in lowercase? So I start testing it out in different versions so I can zoom out, look at it, see what it looks like, see the feel of it, you know what I mean? Because a logo is for identification, so it's all about what's the vibe I'm getting, you know what I mean? And a quick way to be able to quickly change the font, what I do, I just usually get the type tool, press T, and I'll just scale it up, and then I'll just quickly choose a type font from the top section here. You can click the drop down menu, and I'll just select the font to start off with, which is totally cool. But what I'm going to show you, I'm going to select this, go to the top left corner and press type, and you can have this cool option called change case. If you select that, you can change the case to lowercase, title case, or sentence case. So if I click lowercase now, you can see I don't have to retype out the name. I can just select it and it automatically changes it for me. I can go back to the top and do it again. So click on type menu, change case, and then I can do title case. So you can see it made the P capital already. So that's a cool trick I do. But typically I do this beforehand. You can even do it sketching as well. For this logo, I didn't sketch anything because I had a picture in my mind, and I just think it's easier to do this method. So once you found out your word and the name of the company that like you're stuck on, then what we're going to do is focus on laying out some fonts. So this is typically called a type wall or a font wall, whatever you want to call it. And pretty much what I do is just get one font and then I just duplicate it by holding Alt and Shift. So I can hold Alt and Shift like this. And if you do it once and press Control D or Command D, it'll just duplicate it heaps of times. And I'll make a stack of that. Then what I'll do, I'll go to my type menu. So mine is on the right here, but you can go to Window, and if you click on Type down the bottom here and go to Character, then you can open this little box here. Then what I'll do, I'll select that, do the drop down menu, and go through the fonts that I feel resonate with the brief and the client and the target audience and the look we're going for. I don't just get any fonts, but I try and keep it a bit more selective. And because it's like a woman, more feminine type of business, I went with all different type of fonts. So I went through all the lists, kept duplicating, and then just got a whole bunch of different fonts. I got some sans serif ones, like really modern, clean ones. And I got some scripts as well, and serif fonts, just a whole bunch of different fonts. And the reason why I do this is it's a quick way to quickly look and what I can utilize and use for the logo instead of, wasting so much time. This is a quick way to do it. So I can look at everything and see what fits the bill. And then I pretty much go through a process of trial and error. So I'll pick some fonts out I like. I'll just hold Alt and Shift just to duplicate it and bring it out and see what type of fonts are working and what could fit the bill really well. Maybe this one. So I'm happy with these fonts here. And then I'll just do a process of elimination. And I'll just zoom in and zoom out and just read it and look at it and see what's the best. For this example, I picked this font. It does feel a bit vintage, a little bit retro, but it's a modern serif font that I kind of like. And it has that feminine feel, but it's also bold. Like, it's a community of bold entrepreneurs, women stepping out in business. Where it's like a mastermind group. They encourage each other and like they're doing really cool stuff. So that's why I picked this font here. It also differentiates a bit. It's not just a plain, sans serif font, which is typically most startups use these days. But that's why I wanted to differentiate a bit with this font as well. But also it's a fake project, so we can play around. So I'll start off with this font here. And now what we're going to do, we're going to customize it. So for this, I'm going to bring my type tool out, my character box. And I want to tighten up the kerning first. So I'll hold Alt. If you're on a Mac, it will be Option. And I'm just going to hold Alt and tap my left arrow key. So you can see it's bumping the kerning, which is the shape between the letters. So I'll bump that in. Not too tight, just a little bit. I can also go in and customize the kerning. Maybe I want to bump the R in or whatever like that. Just make sure there's enough spacing and optically with your eye that it looks good. So you can see here on my right hand side, the box says -40 kerning, which is pretty cool. I also might adjust the weight. So you can see we've got heaps of weights. This font I'm using is called Magdalena Alt. It's a paid font. You can find it online. So you can see it's got all different weights, which is cool. I like using bolder fonts, but I don't want to go too bold. So bold or semi-bold feels right. I'll go with semi-bold for now, which looks good. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this. Make sure you always make a copy, because if you make a mistake, you can always go back. And yeah, you want to have that option. So I'm going to copy this. And what I want to do now is actually, I want to customize this O to make it feel interesting, add some character to it, but also give it some symbolism and meaning. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the font, go to go to Type, and go to Create Outlines. The shortcut key is Shift-Control-O. Once I do that, Illustrator is going to pretty much turn this into shapes, and it's not going to be readable as a font anymore. It's not live. What I can do is actually zoom in, and I'm going to play around this O here, this negative space. First, I'm going to create a little star. So what I want to do that is go to my shape options on the left-hand side and click on the star tool. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm clicking and dragging this shape out, don't let go of the mouse and just press down one. You can also increase the sides of the star, but we want to just go down one and have 4 points. So you can see we sort of have this 4-sided star. It looks like a ninja shuriken as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these points in. So I'll use my direct selection tool, which is like the white little mouse thing. I'll select these 2 points and bump it inwards twice, just using my arrow keys. I'll do the other side as well. 1, 2. And I might bump these down as well. So I'll bump them in like that. That's looking cool. I'll then click and drag and select all these middle points. And Illustrator gives me this little white little circle here inside of those points after I selected them. And what I can do is round off these shapes now. So I can click and drag, and it's going to round it off and give me this star shape. So I'm going to scale this down now, bring it inside of that circle, and that's looking super cool. I can even leave it like this if I want, or if I want to get rid of this part of the circle, I can just double click and go into isolation mode. And I can go in here and just delete these points in the circle. And that should get rid of the shape in the circle. And then now what I'm going to do is select the star. Go to my swatches panel, select the white color. And I'm just going to scale it up. Just like that. And now we have this custom O that looks awesome. We can keep it like the other way if we want, but it's just up to you. You can play around and experiment. So cool. Now we have this. I'm just going to create another copy now. So now we're pretty much done with the main part of the font. Now we're just going to add the tagline. So I'll press T for the type tool and type. I'll use the same font because it has a lot of styles, but you can use a sans serif font if you want to have that modern, just so you have some contrast with the tagline and the logo. So I'm going to make it probably regular or medium, and I'm going to scale it down. So I use Control Shift and comma and full stop to just drop those down. The spacing and the sizing there. I'm going to bump this up. And the cool thing about this word prosper in lowercase, it gives me room to play in this space here. So you can see it's like it's got like a imaginary box here of space. And that's good to utilize for like a tagline. So I'll type in the fake tagline. Enjoy flourishing forever. I'll scale it up. I'll also bump the kerning, so I'll hold Alt and bump the right arrow key just to make it a bit more space. Not too much though. because we want it to be readable and we want it to look good. Cool, so that's looking good. I feel like the contrast is too much and it won't be readable, so I'll bump up the weight. So go back to your character panel, click on the regular in the drop down menu, and I'm gonna click on a higher weight. I'll probably go medium. That feels a bit better. So that's looking awesome. Now to add the little, I'll make a duplicate first, and to add the little trademark now, symbol, what I'm gonna do is press T for the type tool, click once, and I'm just gonna select this text box here. I'll go to type up the top menu. Once you do that, you want to go down to glyphs. And with the glyphs, you'll get this box pop up. And what glyphs is, it allows you to customize your font, because a lot of these fonts that are built by professional typography designers, they actually add extra styles to the fonts, and in other languages, they add the little marks on top of the fonts as well. I'm not sure what that's called, but they also add other symbols as well, like ampersands and the copyright symbol and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna do, all I have to do is just double click on any symbol and it's just gonna add it. You can see how it just adds it to my text box here that I've selected. So I can use any one of them. I'm just gonna use the R one, which is the rights to the trademark or the word of the name. You can also use TM, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna get that and I'm gonna place it somewhere that's not intruding on the logo. We don't want it like too close. We just want it like on the edge there, and we want it small as well. So that's looking kind of good. And I can change the weight of it as well if I want. I can make it lighter or more bolder. That's totally cool. So I'm just gonna bring this back there. So now we have our logo. Now what we can do is just finalize it and just add the color to it. So for this bottom part, I want to make sure that this font is not live as well. So what I'll do is I'll go to type and go to create outlines again. So now this is a shape as well, as you can see. So what I can actually do now is actually cut out this star shape from the circle. And one way to do that is if I select everything, I can press Shift M. You can go to the left hand side and see Shape Builder tool. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold Alt, which is going to put minus, and I can left click once and it's going to minus this shape from the circle. Another way you can do this as well is make the font a compound path, and then go to these shape modes and just minus the front. That's a good way to do it as well. So now we have this font, and this font, and I can group them all together by pressing Control G or Command G, and I can actually make another duplicate, as we can see here. And now I can just place it on some color. So I'm gonna press M for the rectangle tool, drag out some color, make it green in my swatches panel. I'll bring this out and I can make it white color or a cream color. And I like making different versions. So what I'll do, I'll duplicate it and then play around with the color. So I'll double click so I can go inside the group and just play around and see what it looks like. You know, you can play around as well. I can always ungroup the things as well. So Control Shift G will ungroup, and then I can play around as well. But once you're done with this, also make sure that you do the outlines for the little badge there as well, just so you don't run into issues later on if you like hand over the file to someone else. Drag this, make it all green, and I'll go to my transparency panel and go multiply, and you get this cool like indent effect there. So yeah, that's how you create a type mark, a custom type mark. There's so many different styles and ways you can go about it, but it works really well. You can always play around, but I always suggest customizing it and giving it a unique personality. And you don't always have to have a tagline either, or the trademark symbol. Just depends if it's like a startup or a big brand or whatever. In this part of the class, I'm going to show you how to create this cool abstract iconic mark all in Illustrator, and I'm going to show you how to do it from scratch. I did sketches on it, and the whole idea was to create like a play button, and it's based on this company called Logic. I just made it up, and it could be for like in the tech company that focuses on video, and maybe they have a platform similar to like YouTube or something like that, where creators and influencers can show their experiences, you know, through video. So that was the idea for it, and it's mainly targeted at, you know, majority males, but it can be mixed. And yeah, you can see it's very abstract, very interesting. And we've got some shadows. You can play around with gradients as well. And I created this using some grid lines, which I'll show you how to make, which makes it super useful. And I'll show you all the iterations that you can, potentially come up with. There's so many different styles and designs. So you can see here some examples just by using the simple grid lines, how many different ideas you can come up with. And it's crazy. You can see here, there's a couple more here. Kind of like this one that I did before, but just showing you guys the process so you can see what the possibilities and potentials of if you do this. So you can see here what I've done. First up, I was doing some sketches and I was playing around with some ideas of the play button, just playing around with different shapes, using it with just a line, what it would look like if I, put some lines in it, and, just tested out different angles, different effects. Maybe if I could put some shade on certain areas like this one here or this one, and just see what different styles. So did a couple of pages there, but yeah, I'm happy how it turned out. First up, what we want to do, we want to create these grid lines. So what I'm going to do is press P for the pen tool. I'm going to left click once, hold shift and left click again. And what I want to do, I'm going to go to my swatches panel on the right hand side and click the gray panel, gray swatch, which is going to turn this into a gray color. If it's not popping up, it's because it's on the fill and not the stroke. So you select it and press Shift X. Shift X will flip it and you'll get this stroke. The stroke can be 2 points or 1 point. You want to make it very thin so, you don't really want to see it. So it's going to be in the background, which is pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold Shift and Alt, drag it down. You want to leave some space and I'm going to press Control D. I'm going to create about 7 lines here, which should be enough for our logo, but you can create extra in case it's not enough. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to make this shorter because it doesn't have to be that long. And I'll scale this up as well, like that. And then what I'm going to do now, I'll make it a bit shorter as well. So you can actually click and drag and select the endpoints and drop them in. I'm going to select these. I'm actually going to group them together. So press Control G or Command G if you're on a Mac. I'll press Control C, Control F. And I'll actually rotate it. So we made a duplicate. So I have one 90 degrees. So you want it to be vertical. And then what I want to do with this one, I want to rotate it minus 30 degrees because I want to have diagonal lines. So what I want to do now is I'm going to press R for the rotate tool. I'm going to just find the bottom anchor point on the left here. I'm going to hold Alt, left click once. And what you want to do, you want to make the angle minus 30. Click the preview button to make sure that you can view the change that you're going to make to this group of lines. Once you've done that, you can press OK. Now drag this up. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this group. And by doing that, you can press the O tool. So select this, press O for the reflect tool. Find the center line here. Holding Alt, you can see you'll get the option on the reflect box. Make sure preview's on. You want it on horizontal, and you want to press copy. So now we have this diagonal group, this group, and we have this straight group here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring this down here. And I'm just going to line it up with these other lines. So you can see if you press Control Y, you can pretty much zoom in and see where the lines all line up. So I'm just going to move that so it's right in the middle there, which is great. You also want to go to View, and you can turn your smart guides on and snap to point as well to make sure it's all snapping in place. So once you're happy with these guides, what we're going to do, I'm going to make the play button shape. So I'm going to use the pen tool primarily for this. You can use the shape tools on the left here if you right click, and you can see the shape tools there. So I'm going to go press P, and I'm going to just follow these lines, and you can see my smart guides are on, so it's going to help me here. I'm going to select a bright color from my swatches, and I'm going to locate this part here. Left click once, go down here, left click once, find this location, left click once, left click once. And now we have this triangle play button shape that we have here. What I want to do now is I want to make sure that these guidelines are all locked. You can actually group them all together, all these gray guidelines. And you can see here we've got all these the reason why we did crisscross with these guides is now we can have all these interesting shapes. So for example, if I show you one of the other designs I did, you can see this here. It allows us to create these like blocky shapes, like a Minecraft style, to make it look like 3D or like a building. You can also do like diagonal patterns and stuff like that. And it just allows for a lot more versatility, as you can see here. So that's why with these guides, you want to create sort of these half diamond shapes, but they're all triangles at the end of the day, which is pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to select everything, make sure nothing's locked. So I got this shape and I got all this. And to zoom in, I'm holding Alt. If you're on a Mac, it'll be Option. And all you do is you hold that button and you zoom in with your mouse, which is going to zoom in really nice and close. And then what I'm going to do from here, after you've selected all this by just clicking and dragging, we want to use the Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder tool is located on the left here. So if I right click, you'll see it's a mouse with 2 circles. I can actually press Shift M as well for the shortcut key. And if I put my mouse over it, once I've pressed Shift M or selected the Shape Builder tool, I can click over these shapes. And because we have all these lines selected, Illustrator is picking up all these shapes now. And it's going to be purely geometric because we've lined up all the lines perfectly. And it's going to pick up all these shapes like this, which is super cool. So now what I can do is I'll start to left click and drag to create this backwards triangle shape like this. And you can see now we already have one piece of the shape or the puzzle. And you can do so many different variations, it's crazy. So I'll select these ones, do these ones. This one, this one. These ones will be a shape. And then this one will have nothing in it. So now what I can actually do is I can actually, if I select everything here, I can use the Shape Builder tool, Shift M. Another cool trick is that you want to select everything and duplicate it. Just in case we make a mistake, I can always go back here and fix it up. So what I'll do, I'll select all this. I can use the Shift M, the Shape Builder tool, and actually hold Option. So it will actually minus negatively instead of plus. And I can go and delete all these lines. You can also, another way to do it is actually group all the lines and then using the magic wand, or you can go into select at the top and go same. You can click, you can select by stroke color, stroke weight. So if you make the strokes a little bit thinner or you make them a gray color, you can select it by color and just delete them all in one go. So another thing as well is you can see some of these lines didn't get deleted. So if I just select all these red parts and lock them, and then I'll click behind and just delete any excess lines that shouldn't be there. As you can see. So that's why it's good to do that other method for deleting. So there's no extra lines there. It's all clean. So if I look at it, you can see it's all geometric. Really sweet. So we have our base shape. I'm going to duplicate it, holding Alt Shift, dragging across there. I'm going to press Shift X. And what I'm going to do is just start to color this gray so we can see what we're doing here. So we've got our base shape. I've done the gray to where I want the lightest color to be, the brightest color, which is going to be this shape. And the darkest colors are going to be the other shapes there. So I'm going to left click and drag it across. If I also look back at this one, you can see that this thing is plussed. So you can always edit and go back, but this area, I'm just going to quickly plus that together. So that's one shape now. And you can see for this back part there, these shapes are deleted, so I can delete those shapes. So I have my key shape here. I'll duplicate that again. So what I'm going to do now is actually start to color it. So I've got a lot of color palettes here that I've gotten. Cool Hue 2.0. Yeah, you can use the colors from this. So what I did, I got one of these blue colors. So you just select the hex code. Control C to copy the hex code. I'll go to my swatches panel. Double click on the square. Press Control V to paste this in. And you can see the codes there. If I click off somewhere, you can see it's adding that color, and I'm gonna press OK. And it should add the color to my swatches panel. And what I'm gonna do to actually add it to my groups, I'm actually gonna have to press this button down here. It looks like a little folded paper. I left click that, and you'll see we can make it a global color. It's gonna be on RGB because we're just working in digital right now. And I'm gonna press OK. And you can see here, here's my swatch. It's just added it. I can drag this, drop it into the folder down the bottom here. And now I can use it to color whatever shape I want. So you can use this to, you know, get nice gradients, which I find super cool. You can use other sites like colors.co. And if you watch my previous logo design class, you'll see all the other resources there that you can find amazing colors. So you can see they have amazing colors as well. And you can build your own custom gradients, which is kind of cool. So I'll show you how to do that really quick. So I'm gonna make a box quickly, and I'll select this yellow color. I'm just gonna, I don't know why the tint, I'll bump the tint up. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to my gradient panel here. What I'll do, I'll actually just select this shape. So there's already a gradient here, but if I go to my swatch, left click once, drag it down, drop it on the little circle here, it will add those to the gradient. I can play around with the sliders here, so you can move the sliders. I can actually press G as well to left click and drag my own gradient like this in direction. Or I can just purely play around with this. I can make it a radial gradient. I can use the freeform gradient tool as well. But I mainly stick with the linear gradient for now and the radial because it's just easier. And then what you do, I select it. I can press the plus button. And I can call it sunny gradient. So now when I make any shape, I can just select the gradients that I've already made. So you can see I've made a couple there just by left clicking once. So because I already have a gradient, I can go ahead and start to select my shapes, holding shift if I want to select multiples. As you can see there, it's looking cool. I'm going to duplicate it as well. And just by clicking that, we've already done some cool gradients. I'm going to show you how I created this sort of fade shadow effect. So to do that, I'm just going to use flat colors. But once again, you can use the gradient color. So for example, because this shape is on top, we want to make it feel like this gradient, the dark, we want to make the shaded parts next to where it's located. So in my gradient tool, you can see I can select an angle. So if I put my mouse over it and hold shift and left click in this box here, I can use my mouse wheel and it's going to move around the angle of the shape. You can also just type in like whatever angle you want, like 120 or whatever. So I'm going to bring the dark color more to the edge there. I'll do the same to here. I'll bring this slider up like this. And this is kind of a good way of getting a nice fade. I can also press I for the eyedropper, go click on the other shape with the same gradient, and it should apply the same percentage and angle and everything. Then I can adjust as I go here. This color, I'm just going to select this blue here. I can actually make it a gradient as well. And what I like to do with gradients is I flip it around, because it adds a nice dynamic there. So it gives this illusion. It feels like this one's on top. But what we're going to do, we're going to do it a better way as well to do some nice shadows. So I want to select these three bottom parts because this is like connected. I can make it a purple color. And this can be blue, it can be teal. And this color can be like a darker purple. Yeah, that's cool. So what I like to do is I use the pen tool. So I'm just going to move these over here. I'm going to just press tab. I'll press P for the pen tool. You see my mouse is changed. My smart guides are still on. So what I'm going to do is left click on this part here. Left click on this corner here. It should snap. Then I'm going to click off it. And I'm going to make a rectangle shape. Don't worry about being too even. It doesn't have to be. You can, if you want to make it perfect, then you can use a guide or whatever. But I'm just going to do it this way because it's just quicker. And then from this, I'm going to select all these shapes. Press Shift M for the shape editor tool. once again, I'm going to minus this shape and I'm going to minus that shape. So now I have this shape and I'm going to select the same color as this. So I got this shape and I'm going to go to my transparency panel. So I'll bring up my transparency panel. I'm going to select a blending mode, click on this drop down menu where it says normal, and then I want to click multiply. So now we've got this cool, nice shadow, and it makes it give the illusion that this is floating on top of it. This like backwards arrow shape. So I can select it. If it looks a bit harsh, what I can do is drop the opacity to about 60%. Typically, I always drop it down by 20%. So if 80 doesn't look good, I go 60, then I go 40, or even around 30. But 60 looks good for now. And I can select this so I can duplicate it. I'll press O for the reflect tool. Locate this center point, because this is our center here, right in the middle of this shape. I'm going to hold Alt, left click once on the middle anchor. We want to make sure the axis is in horizontal, and I'll press copy. Now it essentially flipped this shape and put it on the other side. Now bam, we have this cool shadow effect here on both sides. Another cool thing as well is now what we can do is I can duplicate this. So I'll hold Alt and I'll drag it, and I want to make sure it snaps. And I'll zoom in here and make sure that it snaps in the right place, because sometimes it doesn't pick it up properly. So I'll drop it directly on where that shape is. And I can edit these shadows here. And it should be aligned. And I'll do the same for here as well. Just hold Alt. Zoom in. And don't worry if it's not crazy perfect. If it's not, then you might have to fix your guides at the start. I'll just drag this in, snap that. Because you want to keep the same width. You don't want to have two different widths of like a shadow. You know, unless you're doing like this sort of effect and you're dragging it out like that, you can do that as well. But I'm just going for a basic shading here. The contrast is not as good as I want it to be, so I might have to do a darker purple. An even darker one here. Or I can go to my color over here and I can go to K, which is black, and make it more darker as there. So there's a lot more contrast there, which is cool. So I'm just gonna snap back some of these panels in here, just so it's easier. We've got some more space to work with. So now if I duplicate this and place it on a, dark background, it's looking really cool. So I've got purple background there. This one's probably the best. Or I can make it this color as well. But then these ones, we have to make it lighter. So you can play around. There's so many different options you can do. So now once you have this, what you can do, you can duplicate it. And what I want to actually do is, you want to make it scalable as well as being able to use it for other like areas in case it's on like a color, or like people are using it on a small digital, maybe on a website, some small icon in the corner or whatever. We want to be able to have this flexibility here. So I'm just going to extend this shadow and bring it all the way across like this. And I'll select it, minus off any excess. I'll do the same for here, like that. I'll select everything. I'll just duplicate it in case. Select everything. Use the shape editor tool again, as we've been using, and just minus all that off. And I'll just go in here, delete this little stroke. Because I was just a tiny bit off. And you can go in and clean it up if it's not 100% accurate. And there we have it. We can use this and I can make it black. I can make it a white version. So, you know, we can use any color and it will work. It will still be legible. So yeah, you can put gradients as well. Looks super cool. So yeah, that's how you create this cool play button icon. What I'll actually do, I'm gonna add the logo type as well. So I'll press T for the type tool. I'll type in logic. I'll bump the kerning in. So hold Alt and left arrow key to bump the kerning, the tracking. And then what I'll do is, you know, you can play around with the color. I'll make it one of these colors here. So maybe this purple. I'll go to type and create outlines. So now it's a shape. So type, create outlines. So now this is a group. I can ungroup it by pressing Control Shift G. And if I want to, you know, change the color of this, I have to turn the compound path off because you can see in the left corner it says compound path. I'll go to Object in my menu to fix this. So I'll go compound path, Object, compound path, release. Now the top of the eye is now its own shape. And then I can change the color maybe to this lighter color. And then I'll center this just using my eye there just to see how balanced it is. A cool trick as well is if I go to color guide, I can click this little wheel here and all the color groups I have, I can actually play around with different colors. So if I select these, it will just shift all these colors here that I've used and it will create something that looks cool. It's like different versions. Press OK, then press no, and you're sweet. And you can do that like how so many different times to create, you know, the different logos. And then I can put it on a dark background, as you can see there. So I'm going to show you an example of how to export your logo design files. I actually use this cool plugin, an extension called the Logo Package Express. So you can see here, you can buy it on their website. It's called thelogopackage.com. And it's super useful. It actually saves you time and it's really easy to use. All you have to do is select the parts of the logo you want and it will export all the RGB files and CMYK files in, you know, PDF, JPEG, the AI, PNG, all for you. And it literally packages it all in a folder for you so you can hand it off to your clients or hand it off to another designer, which makes it like super easy, super neat. And, you know, it makes the process a lot more smoother. It also converts to the PMS code as well. So if you're going to do a custom 1-color, 2-color print, it will give you the code as well. So I'm going to show you how to use that. So I have my logo here. And what I'm going to do, it's okay if it's not all ungrouped, but I'm just going to quickly group the word mark there, and then group with Control G, the mark here. I'm going to go to my window and go to Extensions and Logo Package Express. I'll show you how to save the files manually as well, not just doing this method in case you don't want to invest in this extension. I just think it's really cool and I've been using it ever since I bought it, which is so cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the whole logo and click Set Logo in the middle of the box here. Make sure you select it, click it. And what's going to happen, it's going to open a new file. So you can see here, it's got the logo here. And now what I want to do is actually set different parts of the logo. So I'm going to select this part and click Set Logo Mark. I'm going to select just the font and the word there, which is going to be logo type. And I don't have a tagline, so I don't need to set the tagline. So what I do now, I can actually go to the settings in this little cog button here, and I can determine what I want. So if I don't want the Pantone colors, I can just turn that off really easily. I can turn on the inverted. Maybe I want a PDF and AI, that's fine. The web formats, I'll just probably do PNG for now. I can also do SVG. And then I can set the pixel width or the scale. I'll just do 500 for now. And it can, the PPI, if it's for print, you know, you want 300 DPI. And if it's just for web stuff, it can be 72, but I'll just leave on PPI for now. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to click Make Print Logos. And then you can see what it starts to do. It starts to generate all the different types of logos. Sometimes it lags, as you can see, it's lagging a bit, but that's fine. That's normal. It shouldn't crash. So you can see it starts to save all the full color CMY. So it will save the reverse color, the black, a gray version, grayscale, the color version. Then it will save the word mark and also just the mark itself, which is like super handy. And then what I do is I click Export Print Logos. Then what it's going to happen, I can type in a name. So I can Logic Logo Design or Project. I can go Browse, and I'm just going to go on the desktop for now. And I made a folder here called Logo Class Example, and you can call it whatever the project's called. And then what I'm going to do is click Create Logo Package. So now you'll see it will start to automatically start to generate all those files that you need for the final project, which you can give and send off. And you can see here, just let it load. And if I just open that folder, you can see it starts generating all those folders and files. And you can do the same thing for the web version as well, which I'll show in a second. So if I quickly go on these files, you can see full color, the grayscale. And if I double click, and it'll have print CMYK. And you can always customize the files and names as well. You can just go in and change it. But you can see now all the files in there. I've got the AI and the PDF. And if you click on it and open it, it's going to open up just how it exported it in the corner here. And there we have our logo, which is super neat, super cool. So if I just open these, you can see all the PDF files, all the print files there. And it saved it to the relevant size that we selected. So I'm going to close this. Now what I'm going to do is, once that happens, you can say Finish Logo Package. But I'm going to click Make Web Logos just to quickly show you that. And it will start to make all the digital versions in the same folder structure. So you can see now, there's a digital folder in that thing. And it's saving it out. And I can double click and you can see I have the logo here ready to use for the real world. So I love using this package. It's super useful and I love it. And then when you're done, you can go Finish Logo Package, click, and then you can just click No, and then it's fine. So another way is that I can select this logo, press Ctrl C. I'll drag it into another folder like this. And then what I can do, I can scale it down. And these are just some sizes. Obviously, what you want to do is you want to make sure you have the right sizes. So if it's a banner for Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you want to make sure it's the right size. If it's just for, a favicon or just a general logo size, then you can just do a rectangle. If it's a horizontal logo, like a long version, you can have the long, wider artboard there. And you can create the artboards by pressing Ctrl O and just dragging. If I bring my artboard back up, you can see if I click on an artboard, it will show me the size here. So you can see all the different sizes up there. I can click an artboard and press delete as well, which is handy. So if I select this artboard over here, you can see it's 300 by 300, which is good for a favicon. So what I'll do is I'll hold Alt, duplicate this logo here. And because the favicon is going to be very small, I'm going to delete these shadows because we want it to be responsive. I don't want it to be too crazy. And then I'll scale it up. And I'll probably go all the way just like that. And that will be good for that mark. I'll bring this logo in here, duplicate it, make it like that. And this one, and you can do different versions. So I'll duplicate this. And maybe this is going to be the all black version, as you can see. So I have the black version. I'll just duplicate it. So you can press Shift O for the artboard tool and then hold Alt and Shift to drag the artboard out. And then I'll reverse this. So I'll make this one a white one, as you can see that. And then what I'll do is the easiest way to save all these out is go Control Alt E. And this will get export for screens. If that was too quick, then you can go File and you can go Export and click Export for Screens. And this is an update that they updated last year, I'm pretty sure. And it's just super easy. It gives you all the artboards here. You can rename the artboards like logo, main, or primary. You can do logo, long, horizontal, logo mark, black, _black. Copy that and then do white. So I can rename them. I can also change it to the list view as well if I want to change it here. And what I like to do is, if you need the bleed, or you can turn that on, but I would select a folder. So, wherever, I can go on desktop again and just make a folder, logo files, click it, select folder. And then the cool thing is you don't have to save your files exactly the same size, because you can scale it up. So I can save all these as the exact artboard size I saved it at. I can then add a scale. So if I click this button on the right here, I can change the scale to ×2, ×3, ×4, or a certain resolution or width. And then I can rename the suffix. You can see it's, I can change it to @2, and I can put PNG. You can change the format. So you got your transparent PNGs, your JPEGs, SVG, and PDF. So I can add so many different scales. So when I export, it's going to save all these files, and then it's going to save them in 1 to scale, ×2, and ×3. And you can also edit the options here as well. You can play around if you want to get into the detail, and you can change the iOS or Android. I typically just leave it on iOS for now. But what I can do now is you can create subfolders as well. So I'll tick that and I'll press export. And it should export all the folders like this. And then double click, and now I have my logo ready to go to send off to my client. And obviously I'll package it and make sure that all the files are in there. But it's just a quick example. So you see there, the SVG and the 3x scale, which is like heaps bigger. And that's the other way I would start to export the logos. Obviously this is just a short example, but you want to save every version possible. And if you don't have the logo express, then you're going to have to do it this way, which can take longer. Thank you so much for taking the class. Hopefully you've learned some new tips and tricks on how to create some modern logos in Illustrator.